Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, free site, dwyervip.com, free site. It is May the 15th, 2019. Now, some people have reached out to me privately, publicly. My email is dwyer@richarddwyer.com. They're very excited about this Deontay Wilder Dominique Breazeale fight. They feel that there's a betting opportunity here, that Breazeale at a plus 500 represents compelling value, right? Let's talk about it. This is going to be a cold shower video. In other words, while I agree Breazeale has a chance in the fight, I do agree with that. This fight's too iffy for me to bet on. And I believe one of the big rules in betting on anything is to know when to say when. So I'm going to watch this fight. I'm eager to see the fight. But in researching the fight, I don't think it's bettable. Right? First, let me say this. I don't like the idea of paying a minus 800 for anyone. Right? Bet 800 to win 100? That doesn't sound good to me. Those are the odds right now for someone to bet on Deontay Wilder. So if you believe Wilder is going to win this fight, I think there are problems here. Right? The price always matters. I don't like the price on Wilder. But let's go further and let's get uncomfortable. Right? Understand, this is not a fan site. I did invite a boxer once to appear online to discuss some legal issues. He turned me down, and I respect that. But I'm really not someone who spends time trying to get to know fighters. Right? I'm not looking to laugh with a fighter on video here on YouTube. I'm really just in it for the money. So, let's just say this. Right? Deontay Wilder, who I think is entertaining. I enjoy watching his fights. Even my computer's getting upset with me here. But Deontay Wilder has holes in his game. Right? Like some of the people who are contacting me thinking the underdog has a chance here. Just understand that Deontay Wilder's record, which is historical, hasn't convinced me that he's the kind of fighter who should have that record. In other words, there's some fighters who you see, Larry Holmes, for example, had a great record. And you see him in the ring and you understand why. Right? The record fits the man. Here, because of the holes in Deontay Wilder's game, and we'll get into them. Right? Deontay Wilder's record, where only 2 guys have gone the distance with him, where only 1 guy has gone the distance with him who Wilder didn't later knock out. His unbeaten mark just doesn't give me solace. Right? Because of the holes in his game. First, let's talk about depth. Right? The idea that a fighter has a multiplicity of skills so that they can approach a fight and they can focus on one skill set as their area of attack, their primary weapon, and then in a different fight against a different fighter, they can focus on something else because they have many tools in their toolkit. So, Floyd Mayweather against Diego Corrales, both unbeaten at the time. Right? It was supposed to be the biggest test of Mayweather's career. Floyd Mayweather decides he's going to turn it into an exemplar on how to use a left hook. That's a left hook festival. Mayweather drops Corrales several times with left hooks. Right? Before Corrales' father throws in the towel. Well, years later, Mayweather faces a southpaw, Robert "the Ghost" Guerrero, who at the time was rough and tumble. Mayweather in that fight decides to make it a straight right hand festival. So Mayweather riddles Guerrero with straight right hands and does it with movement. Two different fights, two different hands as his primary weapon. Then we get to the Canelo fight. Revisit the early rounds of that fight. Everyone thought Canelo, big puncher, right? Mayweather would have to get on his bike to beat Canelo. Mayweather comes out in the first round and he wants to sit in the pocket with Canelo. You fight Mayweather, you don't know which Mayweather is going to show up. But you do know Mayweather's going to show up with a strategy. Let's talk about a more recent fighter. Errol Spence. Watched him collapse the pocket on Chris Algieri. Felt bad for Algieri. Right? Errol Spence was on him like Algieri's trunks. Right? Collapses the pocket, is throwing hooks, destroys it. I'm watching Errol Spence against Kell Brook. Errol Spence wants to trade inside, throw hooks on Kell Brook. So then, of course, I'm watching Errol Spence against Mikey Garcia. Same fighter. Murderous inside hooker. Only against Mikey Garcia, he's throwing a jab. Pulverizes him from the outside. Right? A multiple division champion. Mikey was unbeaten at the time. Errol Spence beats him from the outside with a jab Spence had in his arsenal. Took out for the fight. Garcia was unprepared for it. Now those are the kind of fighters you want to bet on. Right? The guys who are like the New England Patriots in the NFL. They can tailor their games. They look at an opponent and they say, what would work against this opponent? Let me use my left hook this fight. Let me use my straight right with this fight. By the way, in both fights, Mayweather, look at the CompuBox, extremely accurate. Right? Extremely accurate. Now let's talk about Deontay Wilder. I know someone in the comment section is going to talk about the left hook that Wilder hit Bermane Stiverne with. Okay, fair enough. But we know that in every fight, and I mean every fight, Wilder's the same guy. Right? It's a straight right hand, folks. He needs space to throw it. It's a straight right hand, and it's a right hand up top. He's not throwing that straight right hand to your body. That's his game. The idea of him showing up and deciding, okay, my left is going to be my primary weapon in this fight, given the tendencies of my opponent, that's just not going to happen. Right? To me, Deontay Wilder, as charismatic as he is, right, wearing crowns into the ring and stuff like that, love his robe, right, exciting KOs. You know, people are going to get hit in his fights, but he doesn't have a lot of depth. The same guy shows up every fight. You can plan on facing Deontay Wilder. Right? An opponent knows, okay, I need to avoid this straight right hand from distance. Right? He's sudden with it. The point is, if you see a fastball enough times, pretty soon major league hitters will figure out how to hit it. Deontay Wilder has an A+ straight right hand from distance. That's it. Right? He's not two-handed. And he's fighting at the highest echelon of the heavyweight division against world-class opponents. Now, Tyson Fury inexplicably, in my opinion, inexplicably, gets hit by that right hand twice in their bout. Right? I have no idea what Tyson Fury's doing in the 12th round. He had the heavyweight title right there. Why is he within range of Wilder's right hand? Wilder somehow is able to get very savvy opponents. Luis Ortiz comes to mind. Lined up with his right hand. But there's going to be a fight. Because we're talking about world-class competition, there's going to be a fight where some fighter avoids that right hand. Right? Understand, Tyson Fury avoided it enough, in my opinion, to win at least 8 rounds in that fight. Right? I know that's not the way the judges saw it. Okay, fair enough. Right? But understand, Tyson Fury, if he doesn't get hit with the right hand in the 12th round, if that's not a 10-8 round for Wilder, Tyson Fury would have won that bout. Right? So I have concerns about the lack of a multiplicity of weapons in Deontay Wilder's toolkit. Let's talk about another problem he has. He's not adaptive reactive. Right? He's not a guy who makes adjustments in fights. He's just not. So you'll notice, and I believe Breazeale is right about this, you'll notice in the Tyson Fury fight, a fight, in my opinion, he had to realize he was losing. I've seen the Showtime All Access where he says, yeah, my corner thought I was up. Give me a break. What the boxing press should do. And I know trainers don't want to criticize other corners and stuff like that. So maybe you want to do this with a promise of anonymity. This is the secret political poll. But they should go around and visit people like Freddie Roach, Robert Garcia, Canelo's team, right? Visit 10 great corners, right? And just say to them, you know, did you see Wilder's fight? Did you think there was a chance that he was up going into the 12th round? Then ask these corners a tougher question. Did you see Wilder making any adjustments during the Tyson Fury fight? You're the heavyweight champion. You're getting outboxed by a guy who is rusty. Folks, 2 fights into his comeback. That's when Fury had this bout. Right? So you're in against Tyson Fury. He's rusty. He's losing weight as part of his preparation. And you mean to tell me that you're the active fighter? You aren't able to try different strategies in the ring, switch it up? If you were Wilder in that fight, wouldn't there have been a time in the first 8 rounds? I think Wilder knocks him down in the 9th or something like that. Wouldn't there have been a time in the first 8 rounds when you say, you know, my plan A is just not working tonight? Right? Me trying to set up this, guess what? Big right hand from distance isn't working. It's even worse than that. Look at the film. You'll notice Fury at times has his hands down. Think about it. Has his hands down. And Wilder's throwing shots and Fury's ducking under the shots. You mean to tell me Wilder couldn't fake and then throw a low right hand and hurt him? When a guy drops his hands and is just there trying to bob and weave, You mean to tell me you can't change up the pattern enough to hit the guy? So when you look at Wilder, some guys are just hardwired. They can't make changes. Their style is what it is. Wilder is flat-footed. He's going to try to throw a right hand. He's not really able, in my opinion, to box with you. Let me say this too. Wilder needs space to get that right hand off. So you had a veteran trainer who was in Fury's corner. He was the second. Guy named Freddie Roach. So Freddie's looking at Wilder, who needed space. And Freddie was trying to tell Tyson Fury, and Freddie's not Tyson Fury's head trainer. Freddie was trying to tell Tyson Fury, hey, jump inside. After the fight, Freddie said, hey, I thought he could knock out Wilder. Because Wilder's like a tornado, right? Big right hand. But you know, if you get inside of the right hand, Wilder might not have the power. Now, Tyson Fury decided to beat Wilder from the outside in. I suspect that was in part because that was so successful. I'm sure Fury thought after one round, I'm up 1-0. He thought after 2 rounds, I'm up 2 rounds to none. He thought after 3 rounds, I'm up 3 rounds to none. Right? Why mess with a good thing? Fury himself might have thought, gee, if I step inside and wrap this up, I could stop this guy. But why do that when all you have to do is last a few more rounds, make it to the end of the fight, and win a decision? Right? Just understand that there are those in the sport, let me raise my hand here, who believe that if you get inside on Wilder, if you get inside of Wilder's long right hand, there's nothing there. There's a scene where, if you look at All Access, they actually have the clip where I believe it's Chris Arreola gets inside on Wilder and starts hitting Wilder in the ribcage. So Wilder, while holding him, starts dancing. Looks good to fans, but he's getting hit in the ribs. Folks, he's slender. There's not a lot of meat there to absorb the shots. Right? He's not Andy Ruiz. Not a lot of meat on the bone inside. Also, you'll notice when Arreola gets inside on Wilder, it's not like Wilder can shorten his punches and fight back. He's not J-Rock Williams. He's not Julian Williams, the guy who just beat Jared Hurd for the super welterweight title. He doesn't have those inside skills. Right? Let me just say this too. This gives me pause on the fight. For some reason, and it's a dynamic that is outside my comprehension, right? There is some thing going on that I just don't see. And I believe one of the things in gambling is to realize what you don't know. I've watched some Wilder fights where he's done next to nothing in some rounds. The Gerald Washington fight, look at the early rounds there. The Luis Ortiz fight, look at the early rounds there. The other guy's throwing more. The other guy has neutralized Wilder's right hand. I'm watching it live, and I'm thinking, okay, that's clearly a round for his opponent. Now, even after the knockouts, right? Wilder usually wins by knockout. Only 2 men have gone the distance with him. Even after the knockouts, I'll double back and I'll say, wow, let me look at the judges' scorecards. How did they score this fight? Clearly, you know, in my opinion, Gerald Washington is throwing a shutout on Wilder. I thought Luis Ortiz would have been ahead of Wilder, but for the knockdowns, right? I'm not going to get upset when I look at a round where a guy hits the canvas and the judges score at 10-8. Even if the judge scores it 10-7, let's say the guy who hit the canvas was battered in the round, I'll say, okay, I'll buy that. But what's disturbing to me, and it's a dynamic that I just don't know how it exists, is when Wilder does nothing in a round, and somehow judges are giving him the round. Right? That Tyson Fury fight, I know guys need to sell a story and stuff like that. I know Wilder wants to convince people that he was in that fight. Right? I'll even concede that Wilder's within 1 second of winning that fight, right? Fury gets up at the count of 9 in round 12. But my goodness, how is Wilder winning rounds in that fight? Right? Fury's moving around. Wilder's swinging and missing. Whatever Wilder's trying to accomplish, he's not accomplishing it. Lennox Lewis saw that fight. He thought Wilder got exposed. Floyd Mayweather was at the fight. Got up and left. He was upset. Let's just say I don't think Mayweather was upset because he thought Wilder got robbed. So the judging situation in Wilder fights has me afraid. In other words, I don't want to bet on an opponent. Have him show up and do more than Wilder. Right? Look like Luis Ortiz did in the early rounds of that fight. And then suddenly hear that Wilder's ahead on the scorecards, or that the fight's evenly scored. Right? You don't want that. Let me say this too. Understand, in the Fury fight, supporters of Tyson Fury understand that the 2 rounds where Fury hits the canvas are 10-8. Right? So there's a 4-round gap there. Wilder 4, Fury nothing. You know something is wrong when a majority of the people feel that even down 4 rounds because of 2 knockouts, Fury got robbed. Let's talk about Dominique Breazeale. Now, I have problems with Breazeale. Now, first let me say this. Breazeale's footwork is much better than Wilder's. Breazeale can cut off the ring on a guy. Right? I don't see Breazeale crossing his feet. Breazeale also is slick in the ring in terms of how he sets up punches. Right? He'll do certain things. He'll fake like he's throwing a right hand, then he'll hit you with a left. Then later he'll come back and look like he's doing the same routine, only this time he really throws the right hand. And Breazeale is two-handed. The problem, though, and it's a big problem, is Breazeale is more skill than talent. When you see him on film, he's noticeably slower than Deontay Wilder. Wilder has, to me, a decided hand speed advantage. Right? Breazeale is a guy in there with technique. But you notice he's not the athlete that, let's say, someone like Anthony Joshua is. Then you get into his past. He's losing to Mansour. He's losing the bout. Gets dropped. Mansour bites his tongue because he has a defective mouthpiece and almost severs his own tongue. Amir Mansour has to then retire from the bout, a bout in which he's spanking Dominique Breazeale. The Fred Cassie fight, that was a close fight. Right? That fight could have gone either way. The Uganov fight, Breazeale gets dropped in that fight. Now, Breazeale mounts a great comeback, but understand, Breazeale gets dropped early in that fight. His opponent, great athlete, but is raw. We have the Joshua fight. Breazeale gets dropped in the Joshua fight. Joshua, this one of Joshua's best moments. Joshua, who's normally cautious, decides to throw caution to the wind and actually starts tracking Breazeale. Right? Coming inside on him. Not fearing Breazeale's punch. Let me say this too. Breazeale's record seems inflated to me. Seems like he's fought some questionable opponents. Let's call it out right here in the video. So, he fights a guy, Carlos Negron, who, believe it or not, within the last 3 years, fought a guy who had no wins and 33 losses. Right? Negron fought that guy on September the 15th, 2016. As I looked at Negron's record, which looks impressive on paper, as I researched the opponents he fought, I saw a lot of guys with recent losses. I saw a lot of guys with subpar records. Well, what I want people to understand is Breazeale was in a close match with Negron late before Breazeale got the stoppage. Negron, who by American standards had not fought competitive competition, who did not earn, in my opinion, regardless of his record, did not earn the shot against a former Olympian in Breazeale, was actually competitive with Breazeale for several rounds. So to sum up, I do feel that Deontay Wilder is beatable. I don't want anyone here to think that I think that Deontay Wilder is unbeatable. Right? I appreciate Wilder's personality. I appreciate the warrior in him. Right? He was on his way to fight Alexander Povetkin when Alexander Povetkin failed a drug test. Right? He went and fought Tyson Fury. He tried to fight Anthony Joshua. Right? Okay, fine. You know, I give him credit. He fought Luis Ortiz. Very tough opponent. No question that Wilder wants to be great. But I don't see the depth. I don't see the ability to adjust on the all-access fight. Wilder said that he thought the reason the all-access film from Showtime, which is in my favorites folder here online, Wilder said he thought that he was just trying too hard for the knockout against Tyson Fury. Right? I'm just telling you, I feel that fighters like Floyd Mayweather, Errol Spence, guys who are actually coming up with game plans and using different tools. Right? Think about it. Errol Spence against a smaller Mikey Garcia, a guy with not a lot of experience at welterweight, made a decision before that fight, because you see it in the first round, not to collapse the pocket, even though that's what Spence is good at. That's what Spence is known for. Spence, big time puncher up close, looked at Mikey Garcia's style and decided, you know what, I'm going to operate behind a jab from distance. And he had the jab. I don't believe Deontay Wilder sees the sport that way. Right? I don't think he has developed the tools to deal with big-time opposition. Right? I look at the fight that Joshua fought against Breazeale, and I just think to myself, if he fought that same fight against Deontay Wilder, I think Joshua beats Wilder. Right? I think if Joshua gets out of his shell and actually starts following you around the ring and makes a decision to get inside of a guy's long punches and starts to go to the body like he did against Breazeale, I think he topples Deontay Wilder. Right? We'll see if the two guys give us an opportunity to actually watch that fight. So here, let's just say I believe Breazeale has the skills, right? Has the know-how. I'll say this. I believe Breazeale is savvier and more unpredictable than Wilder in the ring. I'm just not of the belief that he's talented enough. Right? Slower guy. Gets hit in fights. If he's been down against Amir Mansour, Uganov, Joshua, how do I know he's going to stand up against Wilder? Let me say this too. The casino has priced this correctly. I noticed the under 9.5 rounds, if you're an over-under better, is an expensive minus 280. Let me also say too that Wilder was so exposed in the Fury fight that I feel that if you just look at that fight, if you're Dominique Breazeale, you could look at that fight and figure out how to last a few rounds against Wilder. Right? Breazeale, after all, did last a few rounds against Anthony Joshua. Finally, I'm nervous. I believe this fight's in Brooklyn. Right? The scene of the Wilder-Ortiz fight. As I said, I'm nervous about the scoring here. I get the feeling that if you're in with Wilder, who's tall, right? Who's a bit of a celebrity. He was on Billions, right? People know who he is. If you're against a celebrity heavyweight champion who's taller than you, who everyone in the arena knows has a big right hand, are the judges going to give his opponent the slow rounds? Rounds where the opponent does more than Wilder, but doesn't back him up, doesn't knock him out, doesn't hit him with big shots. Right? I'm just telling you there are fights out there. Again, I encourage people to look at the Gerald Washington scorecards. Look at the Luis Ortiz scorecards. There are fights out there where you realize, wow, when nothing happens in a round, right, all of these rounds by default seem to be awarded to Deontay Wilder. Right? So, I'm on the sidelines here. I agree Wilder's beatable. I agree Breazeale has looked inspired at times. Certainly has fought some big competition, right? The fact that he already fought Anthony Joshua speaks volumes. But Breazeale looks a little slow, has been on the canvas in multiple fights, has been hit with right hands in past fights, has some gift wins where guys are biting their own tongues and stuff like that. Right? Where Uzi, drops him, then doesn't know how to stay away from him. Right? So I'm on the sidelines. I'm expecting an interesting fight. Right? I'll be surprised if the fight goes the distance, because Breazeale's been knocked down multiple times, and only 2 men have gone the distance with Wilder. Also, if Wilder is as unprepared inside as I think he is, I believe Breazeale, if he's figured out the lay of the land, knows he can't win the fight on his back foot. He needs to bring it to Wilder. So I could even see Breazeale getting a stoppage here. So to the gamblers, I'm on the sidelines. I'm not touching this one. Right? I question Breazeale's athleticism, hand speed. I question Wilder's depth, his ability to be adaptive, reactive. I even question the judges in Deontay Wilder fights. I'm on the sidelines. Must watch fight. I'm not betting it. That's how I see it. Let me hear from you. Don't be bashful in the comment section. If you have a preference in this fight, if you're going to bet the fight, tell us who you like and why. But let's also recognize the long odds. I mean, understand, a bet on Wilder simply to win at -800 is not going to put your kids through college. If your pick is Wilder simply to win, just understand that that is a low margin bet, right? So given a choice these days between investing in Bitcoin, Dash, silver, or this fight, I'm going with the first 3. That's how I see it. Let me hear from you. I look forward to your comments. Thanks for stopping by.